I just want to first off thank the filmmakers for joining us here, because I read the title of this and the ethics of documentary and the streets and all that, and I thought I'd go running a mile rather than sit up on the table and have to judge all this weighty stuff. So thank you all for coming, and then thank you all also for joining us for this chat. So I think format-wise what we'll try to do is, because we have a concentrated hour, if that is, we'll get the conversation going, but I hate these sort of podiums and that, so you should feel free to chime in with questions and not be too formal, and then I'll goad people a little bit so that we can get a chat going. We've got a good, healthy turnout. So without further ado, this is interesting for me also, because I just left one of the screenings of Adam Curtis, who's being honored at the festival this year for his films, and there are people who lined up for 4 hours to see Century of the Self. And one of the contentions of this about the link between psychoanalysis and how we deal with people, and generally speaking, is that people actually think they're a lot freer than they might actually be in a democracy. That even their consent isn't really their consent, that people can be persuaded. And for documentary filmmakers, this is a very... It's a very contentious thing, because people sign bits of paper, people who say yes on a camera, people say, yeah, sure, I'll go along, but do they really know what they're getting into? That gets even more complicated when you factor children into it, or communities maybe you're going into that you're not from, and all these arguments that sort of rage. So these guys agreed to it, so it's too late, they can't escape, so we've locked the doors and everything. So we're going to jump in and just I say this very affectionately.
Some clips before you.
Yeah, do you have clips? Okay, great. So even better. We'll show a few clips, and then that'll save them a few minutes before I put everybody on the spot and see how it all goes. Okay.
کجا هستم من؟ خونه آدم کجا هست؟ اینجا بهشته.
Why don't you do it at Maisels? I feel like they would support that.
Yeah, no, you should be in Chelsea, LES, the people love, down there love stuff like that. Oh my god, these black people and drugs. So perfect.
You smoked that K already?
I'm smoking right now. I'm going home. I'm waiting for the 15 bus to come and pick me up. Oh!
Just give me one word of advice.
Go home. Go home. Stay home. And that's it. I'm high right now. I want to go home. I want the 15 bus to come in over here right where I'm sitting and pick me up. Smoke cigarettes?
Nah, I don't smoke that bullshit.
Тут все приятно, когда игрушки плевают. Тамагочи, плеера, магнитофон, все игрушки. Когда в них играть можно, а когда нельзя.
Нет, я на тебя не обзываюсь, я на нее.
Я боюсь.
Ой, ты.
Что ты с нас закатываешь прячешь?
Это она же меня прячет. Юля, я сказал, если я вырвусь, тебе пизда. Я.
Так, чувствуй, не лезет. Ай, Саша! Саша, ты сказала, что меня ради...
Ай! Далеко.
Ты меня делай разум! Да!
Ну, конечно, спасибо. А юбка все равно. Меня, пожалуйста.
I think maybe a good way in is Morgan. You had the first clip up there, so I'm going to jump in with you if I can. And I know in getting ready for this, I'd looked at some of the other things you'd spoken about the process elsewhere about the film, and you were actually very candid about some of the initial discomfort when you were approaching this story, and then seeing fellow media people. And there was a process there of you feeling comfortable with something. I think it's maybe a good way to start, because I often find there's a huge gap between people who don't make films, asking questions. Sometimes you get curious because they don't understand just the mess, just the reality, just the mess of that situation. So perhaps I'll ask you to jump in with that.
The concept or my motivation during the making of this film was always to only to start filming if there was a basis of mutual trust between me and the people that I wanted to film. And oftenly I didn't even start talking about the film unless I had the feeling that there was a mutual interest. And I was very careful about, presenting my project right away, and I took it very slow.
Yeah.
That is the how do you say that? When you can make a film like this, you're not in a hurry. For example, when you have to write an article for a newspaper who wants to have, very information that's very up to date, you don't have a lot of time to actually bond with people or to try to make sure that that they feel comfortable being filmed and telling their story.
Yeah.
So and we wanted to go beyond the factual information.
Yeah.
So that's why it was important that these people really believed in the project and to cooperate.
There's one of the terms you used elsewhere is you spoke of people as collaborators, and I thought that's very interesting. And speak a little bit about that, because I think that the background initially was with newspapers and other media. So no one's ever making a film in a neutral space, right? Everybody goes into somewhere where someone has been talking about these people elsewhere, and usually in a way that you're often reacting to somehow, like, okay, well, that's bad. So what made them collaborators for you that distanced it from, say, the newspapers that were around you at the time? Especially because there's an instance you speak about where a boat went down and there were survivors of that boat, and you felt actually recoiled at how some of the things you saw there, no?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the approach that it's my approach, I think, because I really tried to loosen the people up and to have fun with them in the first place, even though they live in a bad situation. I cooked a lot with the people. I cooked for them sometimes. I ate a lot of the food they ate. these people were always so generous. You know, if you're open to, especially the African people, they've been always so generous. They even offered me to sleep in their house, even if they would already be with 20 people in two small living rooms. I played games with them. I learned a lot about their religion and talked a lot about the religion because those concepts were also very important for the film.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of religious concepts that had a strong influence on what the film finally came to look like.
So in that collaboration, does the film's goals, did they change as a result, or were you presenting them, well, I have an idea, and they understand the ideals? Does that collaboration involve that?
Yeah, at some point I always started to explain what my personal ambition was and how I wanted to do it. I always said, I cannot help you financially, or I cannot help you with a permanent residence in Europe.
Right, interesting.
But what I can do is try to give you a voice, and not a literal voice, because that's the way it's usually done. And then I would explain that in my opinion, it would be much more effective if an audience could live the experience in a cinematic way. Through the cinematic medium. So I said, okay, I don't want you to tell me how you feel. I want you to show me your life, your everyday life.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask everybody this, and we're going to jump to the others, but so what then, because this is one of these rare opportunities that True False affords when we can actually have a chat with you guys, like what then was the toughest? I mean, I think those are great intentions going. What's the toughest moment with regard to this film, then ethically? Was there a point where you were like, okay, I've got to rethink X?
Yeah, definitely the Lampedusa scene. I'm not sure if anybody saw the film here, but
just tell them a little bit about that, because I found that very interesting.
There's a scene in the film. It's about shipwreck that happened off the coast of Lampedusa in October 2013. And Lampedusa is an Italian island where a lot of refugees arrive, and most of them come from Libya. So smugglers from Libya board boats of about 500 people per boat. They pay about 1,000 euros per person, so it's €500,000 euros per boat. They send, what the stories I've heard is that some of the smugglers sends about 3-4 boats per week. So that's quite a lot of money for them. And they don't really care about the safety of the refugees. So, and the European laws are, they're more and more strict about letting people just, they think that it's effective if they just let the people die and not to help them, so that it's a sign for other people not to make the travel. So what happened was that there were people very close to the coast, and they lit a blanket on fire to catch attention because they wanted to be picked up by the Coast Guard. But then the boat caught fire, and all the people moved to one side of the boat, which caused the boat to capsize, and there was a lot of oil, so it was like a bad situation, and 350 people died.
Yeah, and it's important to note here that if you helped these survivors, you could actually be prosecuted. Is that?
Yeah,
is
that's
that
right.
I read?
Yeah.
And there was a woman who actually helped who was being prosecuted, and in all of that, you've got to shoot something.
All of this is not in the film. But I spoke to a lady who who saved about 30 people, because on that moment she was sleeping, because during the day she was around that area fishing with some friends, and she woke up because of the screaming. She saw people in the water, and her boat got so heavy from other people that they tried to save that at some point they just had to let people die in the water. But couple of weeks later, she was in trouble with how do you say that, with law, with the government, because it's not allowed to help. It could be seen as helping or like doing human smuggling. So that's really twisted. But the most difficult thing about filming there, I was there during the aftermath, so about 2 days after the shipwreck, and there were countless journalists trying to capture the same moment that I was capturing, and they were all making the same shot. It was so weird. It was surreal. It was a big media circus. Oh God. And thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah. It was. It was very. It was a big confrontation for me because I was asking myself, how am I different from these people who are trying to capture this same moment right now?
Right.
I tried to, well, at the moment when all those coffins were transported from the harbor to military boats, I just had the feeling that I had to capture that.
Yeah.
But it was difficult because you're just invading people's privacy heavily.
Yeah.
But in the days after that, I tried to make a connection with the people in a different way by, for example, I bought a football and start playing football with a lot of refugees.
And with that comes portraying them differently than they would in the press.
Yeah. And I tried to take a lot of care afterwards, trying to explain what I filmed and show them what I filmed and discuss with them, you know, how I was going to make it into a film and eventually gain their trust.
Yeah, well, I think the next clip we saw was Khalik's clip, and I think that dovetails perfectly because you're dealing. We're both from New York, and I was like, okay, so you're dealing with some very similar issues there with people that either typically people walk by 1,000 times on and they think they know who they are, right? Or they don't look at them at all. They're the invisible people, right? And so there's, so let's dive in there with you because this is very ironic. Being from New York too, I know that part, and you're gonna know that corner. And I was like, wow, I need to. When they sent me this, I said, I put that on the list. I said, I want to see that because that'll be a gut check for me. Like how much attention have I paid right there? So let's talk a little bit about the motives that for what you saw and what you wanted to get at, in opposition to how people have typically treated that part of New York.
I used to avoid that area for years.
And where are you from in New York?
I'm from, my family's from Bushwick, moved to Flushings, and then moved out to Long Island.
Okay.
So that's where I'm living now in Long Island. But Harlem has always been like a place for me. I always felt home in Harlem. But that one corner of 125th Street in Lexington where the whole film was shot, I used to avoid. Because I used to come to Harlem just for the esoteric books, the knowledge. You know, there's a lot of information that you don't get taught in school that Harlem could afford you if you want to, you know, delve into that. And, you know, I got left back in school in 8th grade, and I was like, yo, I need to start learning something. But I didn't want to learn what the school system was teaching me. So I was just going to the streets, buying books. And the 456 subway station is right there on the same corner of Lexington.
Right.
And I would just see these people that look like zombies. It was like The Walking Dead for real. And, you know, I was just like, damn, let me hop in the train and get out of here. But years later, when I became a photographer, I was like, yo, this is crazy. I got to get into this world, you know. So I started shooting the area at daytime. And I started just hanging around late. Like, it would be 10 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, damn, all right, I got some night shots. That's good. And I would develop the film, and then the film would be very interesting. And after that, I'm like, yo, I got to come out here at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I got to get, you know, the most visceral, grittiest images possible. So my origins within that neighborhood are as a photographer first. And after being there with the camera for 2 years, just taking photographs, I developed some serious relationships with the people. So when I made the film, when it came time to make the film, people were already used to me. And it was just like, oh, they thought, like, if you see the film, they're posing like I'm taking a still shot, because they couldn't differentiate between the still camera and the video camera. They thought it was the same thing. But I liked how that played into the film as well. But as far as, you know, my intent, it was always to, you know, dignify the people and show it in a beautiful light, regardless to the struggle or how difficult, the circumstance may be, there's still light there,
Right. That's very interesting because at a time when I came up in this, they were still banding around these now, what I think and I hope are obsolete ideas about objectivity with journalism and being dispassionate, this kind of like New York Times distance of things. I think even they've changed that line now. And you couldn't, you had to put on your I don't have an agenda face, but there's a great transparency here that like, no, there's a feeling with what you're saying that, well, in fact, look, these people have been looked at a certain way and their dignity has been passed over, and that's what you're going to make the guiding light of your portrayal there. That's fair, right?
Yeah. Your circumstances don't define you. Your past doesn't define you. Drug usage and homelessness, those are things people are going through for their own lessons. Yeah. You know what I mean? I got friends who are famous. They suffer from depression. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much money or homes they have. It's the same thing with everyone. So, this film came from the heart, man. And, to me, it was like a way of giving the people a voice, because many of them don't have Facebook, right. Internet access, computers. And, when I made the film, I came back out into the streets like afterwards and was like, yo, I made this movie. It's called Field Niggas. And check it out. And they were like, damn, I don't got no internet. So I came back in the area just taking pictures. And like, a few weeks ago, one of the people in the film, his name is Denier. He was like, yo, what's up with that movie you were talking about? And I gave him my business card and he checked it out. And then, I came back out to shoot the night after that, and the whole block was just like roaring, like, yo, I seen that movie. Like even the the Pakistani guys in the bodega were like, yo, Field Nigga, I seen that movie. And I was like, damn, and it's an hour. They were quoting parts from the end. That means they watched the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? so to me, I was like, but that kind of worked in a way which made me kind of uncomfortable, because now people are jumping in front of my camera now, like trying to fix themselves up and top. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's less natural. So I've just been low key in the area. The film was just a part of what I'm doing in that neighborhood. You know what I mean? It's not an end. It was just a part of my photography, really.
Yeah. So let's throw some difficult questions. I'm going to keep you on the spot.
Yeah.
So if someone comes in that crowd in Harlem and says to you, I saw that film, it sucked. The way you showed me, it sucked. That's wrong. That's off. Or even with your film, Morgan, and we'll get to Hanna in a second. What is that for you?
Well, everybody is entitled to their own feelings about it. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like the people that's seen it, they already have a rapport with me as a photographer. So most of the people in the film, I photographed them before, and I go out to the streets with a book of 4x6 prints and just show them. This is also to help me take pictures of people that I haven't met yet. So I'll show them the book of prints, what you see in the film, right. And they're like, yeah, okay, go ahead, take a picture of me. You know what I'm saying? Because most of the time they think it's going to Instagram. When I started in the area, there was a guy that didn't like me. He thought that I was exploiting people, and he was an MTA officer. And one night, he just started telling people that I'm working for the NYPD, and the photographs are being sent to the precinct. You know what I mean? So these people could be more easily identified. I haven't seen that guy in years. You know what I'm saying? But even after that incident, I came back out and took more photographs. But, there's some people who, when the film was done, was like, yo, Field Niggas, I don't like that name. I'm not a Field Nigga. What the hell does that mean? But when I explained how it comes from, that's the term Malcolm X designated in one of his speeches, in talking about the two types of slaves that existed back on the plantation. Yeah. You had the house slave and you had the field slave. And the house slave, he never wanted to run away. He never wanted to rebel. He kind of felt comfortable living in the house, wearing the hand-me-downs of the master and eating the scraps off of the table. And, he kind of felt like he was in a superior position, where the field slave was on some like, yo, rebellion, let's like run away. Let's, you know what I'm saying? Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey type people. And the people that I'm shooting in this film are definitely field slaves to this day. Mm-hmm. There's a drug that's sold in the stores there called K2, and it's a synthetic marijuana. It's basically potpourri that's doused with this chemical to simulate THC. And it's being legally sold in the stores, but it's illegal to smoke it. You see what I mean? So when you're homeless, where are you going to take it? You're going to smoke it in the streets, and now the police could say, "Oh, I could arrest you now."
Yeah.
So it's just it's to me that's like a it's blatant slavery, modern day slavery. You know what I'm saying? But the funny thing is, I don't consider the people slaves anyhow. You know what I'm saying? That's just an artistic term. I feel like if anything, they're slaves to their own psychology that they need to elevate out of.
Yeah.
And I'm there to kind of help facilitate that, if I can, you know.
So do you with this film, do you see, because this is about the ethics of doing this thing, do you see yourself within like an ethical, even activist resistance tradition? Because you mentioned Malcolm X. Malcolm X is very important even to that corner.
Yeah,
with the mosque
exactly.
across the street and the history of the nation there, you know, and 5%. That's a very deep and very rich history on that corner right there. And now here you have made this document. Let's get to, do you see yourself, I'm in this tradition for these people?
I'm for all people, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really want to become an activist or get political with it. You know, if anything, my mission is more spiritual. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather, you know, see, in form, we're all different. You know what I'm saying? We're all different in our physical appearance, in the clothes we wear, and the food we eat. That's all on the level of form. But on the level of content, we all contain the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So what we need to do as a human race is to just focus on the content and bypass the form that we take. That way, we're focusing on, you know, what's the similarities in each other rather than the differences. So I'm not trying to make too much of a political statement. I understand there's, you know, political themes in the film and just calling it Field Niggas, referring to Malcolm X and so on. But ultimately, you know, I'm for all people. You know what I'm saying? Those people, the rich, you know, everyone, the poor, the rich, everybody is equal. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what's going to happen with me in the future as far as what type of documentaries I'm going to be making. But just stuff that kind of like shows a different side to people who are categorized a certain way. And these people are categorized as being homeless and poor, and I wanted to show the richness.
Yeah. Well, my last question for you, then we're going to jump to Hannah, is the other thing too about New York, that area, that corner, these people is they have been documented and categorized and shot before.
Yeah.
You must be aware of how they have been. So I want to hear about that. Before you know, as you saw them in that kind of twilight zone of before it became a full film, and like you're aware of like how people show that. What were you aware of? What was bugging you?
Well, you know, people only focus on the worst part, and I wanted to show the full 360. So I wanted it to be the positive, the negative, and the neutral, not just the negative. And I feel like any time that corner, that area has been documented, it's just been talking about the negative. So in the film, you do see the negative because I'm trying to document everything and keep it real. But at the same time, you see the love and the beauty there. Yeah. So if anything, most people, they just limit it to the negative, and just like the news focuses on negativity, and they you know, feed that to the public, and then the public become magnetized to negativity and start attracting it. Right. So I'm trying to magnetize people to the other side and other things there too. And after, you know, like I said, when I came back out to the streets and people were like, yo, I seen the movie, many of them hugged me. Some people just straight started crying. Wow. And, you know, I'm talking about young people, like teenagers were crying too. Like, damn, yo, you finally gave me a voice. You finally showed me in the way that I think about myself. So, you know, that comes from, and I hope that MTA officer would to see it one day. Yeah. You know, but, yeah, you know, I'm just trying to show everything, man. You know, the love, there's a lot of love there, you know.
Hanna, this is a good time to bring you in because when I was reading about the film, there are a few of these like spotted reviews, but one similarity I noticed about the film was, and it's 2 points, is the one everybody, you know, speaks about the investment and the commitment and the time that obviously went into putting that. And then like a relief, without giving too much away, and people should see this, the relief that in the third act, there's a possibility or a window for this character. You know, we're not giving away any endings, but there's that of an uplift in the narrative. Now, typically, we're coming out of an age where what people thought, and the same goes for even Morgan's realm too as well, and Khalik's, that you go in if someone's struggling and you show the struggle and somehow shock people with the struggle into an awareness. And increasingly it seems that there are this conversation, and it's a relief that, like, okay, we'll show the dignity of people, that they have agency, and that they've got a chance and they can do things by themselves, stuff like that. Is that fair? Was that a part of, as you were editing the film, or what was important to you? Because I know you went back 6 years later to perhaps you can speak to that.
Actually, we film all the way through.
Okay.
Not that I had a gap of 6 years. And we have more footage from the moment. We just consciously decided that the film is gonna end with her leaving the baby in the hospital.
Okay.
And then the rest is gonna be like an epilogue.
Okay.
So till now, we actually on the we were showing ITFA version. It was set epilogue, and we just shortly show what have happened to my main protagonist now. But it was kind of like a decision, like an editorial decision, that we skip these materials from her doing this, living here, kind of, But I did shoot some of these things. Of course, I didn't shoot because it's impossible to be with your protagonist 14 years all the time. You have your own life, you have visas, you have other projects you work on, etc. But I think this was really the most difficult film in the editing ever. Yeah,
say more about that, because you then had a lot to funnel in.
It's like you end up. I mean, I don't know. I assume that most of you are students of journalistics. Yes, like you probably learning. I don't know, write or film or something like this. So basically, I faced the situation when I had materials from 14 years. And shot in a place where it was totally forbidden to be, not just film. So many of these materials did not lead anywhere because I was only able to capture something. So then all of this story, the arch, I had to create on the editing. And also the time-lapse story are the most difficult stories in the editing. It's like not only my experience, but the people who work on like Katja Wildermuth from MDR told me she worked on 7-Up version, but a Russian version of Sergei Miroshnichenko in Russia, 7-Up. And she said it was a hell in the editing. Because when you were trying to do it chronologically, it was boring. And then when you were losing chronology, people were completely lost. So I kind of I tried to start from this and from that. And it was like, how do you build this story? So 3.5 years of the editing, day and night, basically completely crazy.
Well, ethically, what was the toughest challenge for you in that process? Was it something in the editing room or something in the shoot?
It's a very complicated question because, of course, I completely relate to both of you. What you are saying, it's also true in my but I'm also like I shot Albert Maysles, and he didn't like a beautiful moment, and he wanted me to get rid of this because he didn't like himself, and everybody was thinking this is like the best moment when he's talking about a dream he had, and he wasn't pleased with this. So kind of in a way that people will tell you, I don't like this and I don't like that. I'm sorry. I do know that I want to. I'm totally aware I may hurt someone because, like Yula, for example, has now a new life. So she doesn't really want to go to the past. She doesn't want to be modern day hero. I had already journalists asking me, can you contact me? Can we make a hero here in Russia of her or something like this? And I spoke with Yula, and she doesn't want it. She wants to be anonymous. And of course, sorry to say, but through my movie, she will not be anonymous. Even in Russia, people will have torrents and download it, and somebody's gonna put it on Vimeo or on YouTube or something like this. So I can't. And I already had an issue with her. She approached me and she said, like you told me it's not gonna be screened in Russia. I said, Yula, I did tell you this, and I did not sell the film to any Russian television. But forgive me, if people put it on Facebook, on YouTube, I have no influence on it. And she said, 35,000 people have seen it. I know, I'm sorry. This is the reason why Krzysztof Kieślowski, like big Polish name, maybe the most famous director, he stopped making documentaries because he really genuinely hurt someone. I don't know genuinely, but he really did hurt a person who is still suing. Kieślowski is not alive for many years, and the guy is still suing. I mean, at least a few years ago, he was still suing a company which owned the rights to the film he was portrayed in. So he really did hurt his life. The guy lost his job. Many things in his life went wrong, and he's still suing. And it's a risk which you take. You don't want to hurt anyone, but and in my case, I understand it may hurt someone, but I also know that people live in this kind of conditions. The children live like this, and this is absolutely not right. And I take this risk because I know it's not only about this particular lives of these people, but it's also about the other people who are in the same conditions. So you kind of look at the risk, and at least I can try to protect her by not showing the film consciously in Russia, but at the same time, I want this film to be seen. I want the people to be outraged. I want them to take action. I want the policymakers to change the law. I think it may save other people's lives. So I think it's still worthy of doing this.
Yeah, this is a very important point because I think this is something that mostly audiences do not get who do not make films, and it's a very politically incorrect point, which I think we should just pause and really go into for a second, which is that sometimes you are, and the Kieślowski incident, and it's quite famous within film circles, but sometimes you are deliberately disappointing and going against what the person wants that you're pointing the camera at the service of something else. That's fair, no? That's what we're saying here.
Well, it's yes and no, because of course there are people who were troublemakers, and they didn't want me to film. Maybe there was a security guy or something like this. I didn't manage to get his face, but if I would show him.
Yeah.
So there are things like this which are kind of part of the world which you want to portray, that this is not an okay word. This is some criminal activities going on. This is not okay. But also there were people at the garbage dump or at the streets when I was filming which didn't want to be filmed. So I didn't film them because I just simply respected the right to choose. And I filmed the other ones who were happy with it, you know.
Yeah. So let's complicate this a little more then. What about this situation? Because I've seen this unfold numerous times where someone consents to be shot, and then when they're really open, they want to backpedal, right? And say, you know what, don't use that.
You know, I had a situation like this right now.
Well,
sorry.
Let's talk
quickly.
No.
I went to the garbage dump very recently because I needed some additional footage, and I needed my protagonists from before to show that they are still there on the different garbage dump. And this one guy really came into frame. He really wanted to talk. He was sitting, he was talking to my protagonist, etc., etc. And he was saying like really great stuff. Something wasn't right, you know. And then he said, can we give him ride to Moscow because he has to do something in Moscow? So we took him, and it was 60 or 70 kilometers from Moscow, so we did. And the next day he said he's gonna visit some people, you know, stay at night there. And in the morning he came all shaved. And I told him, you know, something is wrong. Like, come on, what's wrong? I mean, are you really homeless? Are you something? I said, you know, I'm actually a type of actor which is like taking part in mass scenes and stuff like this, and I had this release, and I said, you know, sign it. And then he started to say, yeah, well, no, I don't know. I said, no. Before I go with any editing, etc., you wanted to be on the footage. You are shot. Everything is great. Sign it. No. I need 2 days to call you back. So after 2 days, I call him. And I told him, so what about the release? And he said, well, I decided not to. And I told him, well, This is not so easy, so simple, because as you know, you wanted to do it, and I hired a cameraman, which I had to pay the money, so you kind of lost my money, you kind of wasted my time, you put yourself in the frame, which I didn't ask you to do, you cheated on me that you are a homeless person when you were not, for some crazy reasons. And then he started to be like really afraid. And then he started to scream at me, "It's you! You knew I am not homeless. And you knew that I'm acting, but you were forcing me." And then I saw all this terrible fear coming out of this person. I really didn't need it. But I was just thinking, why, to hell, I asked him to sign this release? Because I had this kind of sense. I didn't need him really in the footage, but for some reason I sensed something that I have to make this situation totally clear, because otherwise in the editing later I will have really big problems. Because now, okay, I got some footage, I wasted time, I wasted the possibility of shooting my heroes without him nicely as I wanted, because he wanted to be in the image and whatever, and he cheated me. But on the other hand, I felt, I sensed something, you know, and I just allowed my intuition to go. And then he started to tell me, yeah, because from all these bums, you did not need the release, yes? And from me, because you know that I'm not homeless, you need a release. I said, no. And it's not a fucking business of yours. If I need the release from these people or not, if I did sign it, I'm sorry for... But it's how I told him. I said, it's not your business, and stop be judgmental to me, just... It's not your business, you know, you're not gonna tell me what I should... And in fact, I had with the other people, other homeless people, which are not bums to me, but you kind of see how the situation is all turning around, and you have to be very careful, you know.
Yeah. Do you, and this is open to everybody, do any of you have moments, because I've seen this quite a bit too, where, and even in post or in editing, where you actually find that, okay, my question is, what are you leaving out? Like, what there are times, aren't there, where you leave things out because sometimes they're just too strong in one direction or too powerful that may eclipse a larger vision that you're trying to get out there. Anybody want to take that one on?
Well, I had a specific, how do you say that? Sometimes I want to use some words that I use in Dutch, but I can't find them in English. There was this scene in a film about junkies.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to make it anything different from really depressing, even though when we were there we saw that these people were actually really beautiful, humorous people. It's similar to what you were explaining, that your ambition was to also show a beautiful side of the people. So we always wanted to find this balance.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was really hard to find the best way to show the beauty of the story, because sometimes the story was just so awful. And in this occasion we did that through leaving out some of the bad stuff, taking away some of the more depressing stuff, and focusing more on beauty.
Yeah.
Also in music and sound design.
Yeah. Let's. We're gonna open it up, so get some hands ready. But I want to talk about endings a little bit, because that kind of defines narratives, like what you're leaving someone at the end of the film, like, and how they're going to feel about these people. Because it's a weighty decision, no? That we're going to leave them with an uplifting thing. Is that exploitative? Sometimes I wake up and I think, this demand for give me uplifting stories, show me all these good things that we're talking about, is really there to serve some kind of middle class need to feel good about people that they don't want to look at. So there's a tension there, right? So how have you, the three of you, arrived at, you know what, I'm going to end this narrative here. Like, this is the spot where we end that, so that people leaving take X with them. We'll start with you. I think you're first, isn't it?
Well, ending a film is always difficult. You know, I like that line in the Bible, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So basically what's in the beginning of the film is what you see in the end. It's just gutter the whole way through. And my film, Field Niggas, ends with a young woman saying that a man pulled excuse my language, pulled his dick out on her, and she went to go get her brother to go and beat him up. So that's how I ended my film. To me, you know, and it just shows them walking together, and it's funny. He's walking with a cane, you know what I'm saying? And he's gonna go and beat this guy up. So
life goes on.
Yeah, life goes on.
Right.
Life goes on.
Okay.
I just feel like, you know, you want to have a strong ending. You want to have something to punctuate the film nice with a nice period at the end. I wanted to leave them with, you know, basically what they've seen throughout the film. I think the film crescendos earlier, maybe even in the first, you know, half an hour of the film, it gets to the peak and then it just kind of rides its way out. So, you know, you could catch, I wanted to build a film where you could catch 5 minutes of it and feel satisfied, because in this day and age, people's attention span is so short that usually you make a project that's 90 minutes, they don't watch the whole thing unless they're one of us, a filmmaker, you know. I wanted this to be accessible to everyone, you know, and I wanted it to stay with them like a dream that doesn't leave you. So you catch maybe 5-10 minutes of it, regardless to where that is within the hour of the film, and it's like, oh, yo, I got to go back and watch that. Maybe next week or next year, I got to finish watching that film. So there's kind of little endings everywhere. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And for you, Morgan?
Well, we wanted at the end of the film, we wanted to zoom out and to create to give the film a new perspective, to go from micro to macro, and to make it as universal as possible. The whole idea of the film is that you look through the perspective of a ghost, looking for his lost family, and eventually, actually, the ghost and the people in the film have a similar development. And the ghost finally flies away from all the troubles that he has seen and tries to find a certain peace, although it's very hard for him. But he flies up into the sky and then looks out over the city, and there's this metaphor you'd have to see it to understand, but we use the lights of the city as if they are stars.
Yeah.
And then you pass on over the city and you realize that it's a city, and then you look up and then you see that the stars, which is like a visual rhyme and a way for people to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah. And for you, Hanna?
I tried to finish the film in 2005, and then I finishing this in 2013 and even 15.
Wow.
So 10 years later, finally there is the ending of the film.
Yeah.
But it was because Yula gave this birth, and then I was thinking this is gonna be the end of the film, and everything was going against it. So sometimes I think there are some uncontrollable things which are going against, like you kind of hitting the wall and gets all frustrated and think, you know, like, I mean, I already have money, I have this, I have that, I can just finish the film, because I had broadcasters even interested in the film. And then nothing was coming together.
Yeah.
And for quite a few years, and I kept filming, and then my friend, he said, my best friend, he said, you know, don't you understand? You shouldn't do it right now. And then I was like, wow. Okay, you know, I put it on side, and for a long time I didn't come back to the idea of finishing the film. But then I had a conversation with someone who told me his very dramatic story from shooting something, and then I dig in my memories and I brought my story. And then when we were talking, I realized, wow, I think this is the time when I have to go back to this film, to the, you know, not just shooting, but to the editing. And this is how I call also Moscow, and I found out, or I went to Moscow, something like this, and I found out that my protagonist has a totally different life now, etc. So I started to film her in this kind of new situation in her life, and also she's tired. She doesn't want the camera. She wants me as a friend, but she really hates the camera. So I think it's the time to let her have her own life and not to bother her anymore. I mean, of course, I can continue doing this, but there is no point to it.
Yeah.
It's like it's the end.
Okay, any questions? There's a hand over there. I think they've got a microphone for you so everybody can hear them.
Khalik, so I was just curious, where do you think the title, obviously being fairly politically incorrect, how's that going to help you and how's that going to hurt you? We had a film with like a curse word in the title. In some ways it helped us, in some ways it kind of screwed us over. So I was just curious how you think it's going to affect your ability to reach the audience you want to reach and that kind of thing. And I was also curious, does your film have like a act structure that you try to follow, or would you consider it more of an experimental film?
Yeah, I feel kind of like it's a stage play almost. You know, the way it's shot, the whole thing is slow motion, and the audio was out of sync. That was kind of done in a way, you know, when you break the video from the audio, it almost opens up the mind to invest its own imagination into the film. So in a way, I kind of wanted to take people with me to the corner, you know, to this place that people would have otherwise avoided. This film is a field trip to that place. But the term nigger, I mean, it's such, to me, words are meaningless. Words, you know, we invest meaning into words ourselves. We give them power, you know what I mean? And, you know, there's an African proverb that says it's not what you call me, it's what I answer to. So, you know, when people, you know, are rallying against that word nigger, I'm just like, yo, it's just a word. Like, you could call me baboop baboop. If I don't answer to that, then that means it doesn't have any power for me. But as far as the title of the film, I mean, first, I broke it down. First, it was unapologetic field niggas. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, if something is unapologetic, you don't really have to say it's unapologetic. So I just clipped that. And I was just like, field niggas. I thought that was more powerful. And I think it's helped the film, you know, it's, if anything, it helped the film because it's like, what the hell? Yo, I got to see that. What's that about? Like, field niggas. What is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds almost disrespectful. And then it sounds, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I felt like it was just going to make more people want to see it. So I feel like it's helped it. Obviously, when we talk about exploitation, that term itself could be misconstrued, and that's why I'm always breaking it down, saying Malcolm X designated that term, and that puts it more in context. But as far as the pacing of the film, yeah, I kind of wanted it to just be like a play, you know, where, you know, 10 minutes is like the act one, and then after that, you start to go deeper into people just like rhyming, you know, rapping, people asking, you start to hear more of me in the film. You know, a woman says to me, you know, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, ask me whatever. She's like, off camera. I'm like, nah, this is me. You know, letting her know that I'm one with the camera. And she's like, how do I look? Because obviously she's been in the street. And I'm like, yo, going back to what I said earlier, I'm like, yo, all I see is light. I'm bypassing what the physical eyes see. The eyes don't see anything and the ears don't hear anything. All of the senses are illusions. You know what I mean? These are things that exist within the construct of the world, and they're always going to witness to the world only the world. That's what they're meant to do. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to get free, I'm like Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption. You know what I'm saying? I'm digging out of this world. To me, this world, the whole thing is a dream state. So spiritual vision always means that you're going to focus on content, and that's why I told the woman, all I see is light. Same thing with the police. You know what I'm saying? The political climate in America, and especially New York, everybody hates the police right now. You know what I'm saying? But forgiveness is such a power. It's our superpower. We're like X-Men and Superman, but our superpower is forgiveness. So even Hitler is off the hook with me. You know what I'm saying? John Hardy Hawkins, the great slave master who transported X amount of slaves to North America in the 1500s, he's off the hook. You know what I'm saying? I don't care about any of that because...
What's that, off the hook?
Off the hook means he's forgiven. It's in my perspective, he's totally gone because what we don't understand is what a grievance does. You know what I'm saying? A grievance is just another slave chain. You know what I mean? And it binds you to the world. It binds you to the thinking of the world. The thinking of the world is, if you have, I don't have. It's the scarcity principle. You know, it's always deals with lack. You know, if I give something to you, I don't have it anymore. But the laws of reality which go against that, you know, is like to give is to gain. You know, when I give, I'll show that I have, and that increases. So, you know, I'm going somewhere totally different than where your question was, but
Good.
you know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Anyone else out there? There's a hand over here, gentleman here.
This is for Morgan. I loved your film from the first frame and all the way through, but I wonder, as you conceived what you had planned, did doing it with this sort of ephemeral approach, did you think that the message about the immigrants might get lost in that? Did you think it was gritty enough and down to earth enough?
Well, the idea was always that the factual information was a lot less important than the emotional side of the story. And we just wanted to get rid of all this factual stuff because we thought that that was what that's the way this subject is normally treated in mainstream media. And I think that much of the audience, and for example myself, has grown numb to this kind of approach and to this kind of way of telling this story. You know, somebody directing him or herself to the camera and lamenting about their own misery. So, and we wanted to get rid of that, and we just wanted to give the audience a feeling that they are that they can see a part of the lives of these people that they would normally never see, as if they can just walk through that door where a group of immigrants live, where they would normally never dare to go inside because they think they're dangerous or criminal, or that they don't fit in. And we just wanted to get all those boundaries away. That's also partly why we chose for the concept of the ghost, because the ghost can go anywhere. It doesn't feel these limitations of boundaries at all. And personally, to me, I think it gets much closer to these people than you get when you would let them tell what they feel in words, like he said.
Yeah, and Morgan, I want to piggyback that question. It's great because there's something you said earlier that, and I think it's particular to Europe right now. In fact, and I grew up in Europe, is that the immigrant is something that is a very powerful thing at the center of public conversations and discourse. And you said that in that process of even being able to just pass through those walls and get into their life, that you learned a lot about, and that people had their own religions and stuff like that. So speak a little bit about that, because that's something also that gets very simplified and reduced in the...
You mean specifically religion?
Well, no, you said you listed a few things. You said the religion and their culture and their practices.
Yes. Well, I wanted to show a lot of details and a lot of, I wanted to show parts of their culture that anyone could relate to. So to approach it in a more universal way. For example, the way a father would talk lovingly to his son, or the way somebody would wake up, and even the way people would pray, to connect it with an experience that everybody can relate to. So when we go into this room where a large group of people is praying, the first mosque in the film actually, we decided to place a voiceover there. The ghost, is the main character of the film, narrates, so it has this internal monologue, and he thinks about something very personal. He thinks about how he met his wife and how he ran through the fields with his wife and how they held hands, and by that you project that story onto all these men who are praying. So to get rid of that idea that they're dangerous people who want to abolish capitalism or whatever, or our whatever our society, what kind of religion our society is, and to create an Islamic state. I think it's ridiculous to be afraid of that. I think we should just, we should just be friends.
Yeah. You have a question here, a very patient face in the front row. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to know from each of you what your subjects taught you.
Great question. Let's start with Hanna.
What our subject
Taught
about
you,
us?
yeah.
Taught us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I not just Yula, not just my main hero, but many other people. You know, like I think I get more help from them than they got from me. You know, like really, they've been very embracing, very kind, very giving, very sharing, and everything else. I think probably goes the same for all our films. So this is the one thing, and of course sometimes I've been so long with those materials and with those protagonists that sometimes I think with the quotes from what people have said in the materials. So and it's very inspiring, you know, it's very inspiring even when I'm thinking, you know, if she could do it, how come I cannot do it? You know, so in fact I hope this comes through the film also, but for me personally, it's like this, and it makes me very happy because we were shooting maybe a year ago in Moscow, and I had some friends helping, and they said the same. They said, you know, she's a great character. It's really inspiring what she's kind of like representing. So it's kind of amazing to see it like this.
For me, it's an appreciation for the wealth I'm living in and whatever I have, being thankful for what I have. I've seen quite some poverty, and every time I would come back after a session of filming, the first couple of weeks I would be, you know, really impressed by all the stuff that I had and all the possibilities that I had, and at some point I would just fall back into taking it for granted. But because I went back and back over and over again to these people who were living in poverty, and even now doing projects where I still go to places where I see poverty a lot, I really learned to appreciate what I have and not to complain all the time about what I don't have.
Yeah, for me, what they've taught me, what the whole experience taught me, is ask and you shall receive. You know, a lot of the subjects that I photographed and that I filmed in this film, even the police, I never thought I'd be able to do it. So just by asking, I was able to do it. You know what I mean? So really what I learned is the only thing holding us back is us. And, you know, that's become a cliche, like the only person holding you back is you. But it's really true. You know, I had it written down in my notes. There wasn't a script written for this film, but I had it written in my notes, film the police. And for some reason, I thought it was going to be extremely difficult. But I just approached the police respectfully and said, officers, I'm a filmmaker. I'm working on a documentary. May I please include you in my film? And, you know, they said no, a few of them, but a few of them said yes, and they ended up in the movie. So, you know, and also, you know, like I said, I used to avoid that neighborhood. I used to avoid that corner. And I always thought, like, when I set out to even take photographs, yo, how am I going to shoot some of these people that are drug dealers, some of these people that are coming straight out of prison? How am I going to do that? And basically, I just asked them. I just asked them, and they were open to it. So a lot of people ask me, yo, how were you able to do that? How were you able to film this person? And I said, I asked them.
It's inspiring.
How big was that group of people actually? Was it like, was it similar to Skid Row?
Yeah, I know Skid Row out there where the guy just got killed. I don't know. I mean, there's about 30, 40 people that are just basically living on this one corner. And, you know, most people avoid the corner because of the K2 and the drugs. And, you know, there's still a lot of crack over there, too. So, you know, but it's at least 40 people, you know, and they're constantly changing. I've seen people that I started out working with a year ago, and they're not there anymore. They're in jail. So the people are kind of being rotated like volleyball, going into jail, coming out, and some people never came back. You know, some of my friends that I made, they are dead, you know. So I've been able to see, this thing. It's crazy. You know, some people just never make it. You know, but it's at least 40 people, 30, 40 people.
Yeah, I think that's actually oh, we have a patient face. You have a question?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I guess it's a question for all three, but Khalik. Okay. A question for all three, but Khalik specifically. So whether you agree with this or not, but I guess in the mainstream you see with fiction movies, you know, the cinematography and the art is almost more important in a sense. You know, Birdman wins the title because of the way it's shot, whereas documentaries like Citizen4 are relevant because, you know, they're important and they are more journalism in that sense. So with your film specifically, you know, the light and, you know, the aperture you see, you know, you can't just walk in a store because, you know, the light gets distorted on your camera, or like you see blurred lights in the background. How do you, you know, sort of mix both art and cinematography while also keeping your movie about being relevant and about being human and about humans and, you know, having a message of its own?
Yeah, my aesthetic sensibilities were already intact from my photography, and basically I wanted the film to mirror my photography. I wanted any scene to be able to be frozen on the screen and look like one of my photographs. So that sensibility was already intact going into this. And I use low-speed film. For anybody that knows about you know, ISO, I'm using 160 ISO film, which is really sunlight, daylight film, and using that at night without a flash. So that causes a very deep contrast. So I did the same thing when I made the film. There were no lights. It was being lit by passing ambulances and storefronts and you know, the lamppost. So the aperture of the lens I used, a Voigtlander .95 lens, enabled a lot of light to come in there. So I feel like anytime, it's like giving somebody medicine, you know, sometimes they need a chaser, you know, so if you want to give somebody a lot of information, you got to do it in a beautiful way, and that's what I sought out to do with this. So to me, they're equal, you know, they're equal components. You got to have the technical side, you know, being beautiful as far as the information being poignant, and they go together, and that makes the information more digestible to the viewer.
Great. So that's a good note. Please join me in thanking the panel for coming, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thanks, man.